Big transfer news today. PSG are interested in signing Manchester United forward Jadon Sancho. There's been no formal approach from PSG yet, but they have explored the conditions of a deal. Juventus and Borussia Dortmund remain keen on signing Sancho, but as it stands can't meet United's valuation. An unnamed Premier League club has also shown tentative interest. Now, after signing a defender and a striker ready in the window, Manchester United could strengthen in midfield next if either Scott McTominay or Casemiro leave. However, right now a move for either does not seem imminent. United do have a contingency plan though. Dialogue remains open with Paris Saint-Germain over Uruguay midfielder Emile Ugarte. Initial talks have highlighted a gap in valuation with PSG asking for around £60 million. Monaco's Youssouf Fofana could be a cheaper option. Manchester United are looking at him too. Both are central midfielders, though Fofana does offer more going forward while Ugarte is usually in a more of a defensive role. Right, time for the day's transfer news now. As you can see, I've been joined on set by our reporter, Nolan Baker. Nolan, good to see you. Let's start with Manchester United ins and outs in midfield. Yeah, what we are waiting for is just confirmation on who is going to be flying out on Manchester United's pre-season tour to the United States. We're expecting a number of the players who are linked with moves away to still go on this trip, because there have been no deals that have been finalized, but it will still be interesting to see when we get confirmation of that. We're expecting Scott McTominay to be on that flight. Now, we do know that he has been strongly linked with a move to Fulham. While United aren't actively looking to sell, and Erik ten Hag has already said that he's an important player, it's not going to stop interested parties from making bids. Fulham have already made a bid of around £17 million in this transfer window. But it has been rejected. We're expecting them to go back, and I think United are expecting Fulham to go back in with an improved offer. Galatasaray, the Turkish club, they are also interested as well. With regard to incomings, United are looking at a number of players. Paris Saint-Germain midfielder, we've been mentioning throughout this transfer window, Emile Ugarte, Uruguay international. He remains a player of interest and remains a live option. The player is understood to be keen on joining United. Paris Saint-Germain are understood to be keen on doing a deal. Manchester United, though, initial talks have highlighted a big gap in the valuation between what they're prepared to pay and what Paris Saint-Germain want. We think it could be as high as €70 million, the valuation for Emile Ugarte. Sofyan Amrabat is an interesting one. We know he was on loan at Manchester United last season. United had the option to buy him for €20 million. They don't want to spend €20 million on him, but they're still in discussions with Fiorentina about maybe negotiating on that fee. Youssouf Fofana of Monaco, he is another player that has emerged as an option for Manchester United. But in keeping with how Manchester United want to do their transfer dealings, they want to agree deals in principle with multiple targets and then decide which one they want to pursue. Because they don't want to find themselves in that position that they have in previous transfer windows, where there's been one target, they've chased that player the whole window, and then when it hasn't worked out, it's almost been panic stations. Here, if they have 3 or 4 options, then if one doesn't work, they can easily move on to another player because they would have done due diligence and they would have done work on that particular player. So could be potential incomings and outgoings in midfield. What about in the centre-back position? Who are they targeting there? Again, we're talking about United needing to create budget and squad space. And Victor Lindelof remains an option for a number of European clubs. But there are still a couple of options that United are looking at with regard to incomings. Matthijs de Ligt from Bayern Munich still remains a live option as far as Manchester United are concerned. However, not at the price that Bayern would want. We think that Bayern want €50 million plus performance-related add-ons. United don't want to pay anywhere near that, so the discussions initially have highlighted a big gap in valuation. However, Bayern Munich, they are in a bit of a pickle here, only because they are trying to do a deal with Bayer Leverkusen over Jonathan Tah. Now, a lot of that deal has been agreed with the player potentially, and some of the talks have been positive between the two clubs. However, it's likely they'll need to sell Matthijs de Ligt to be able to pursue that deal for Tah. And interestingly, Manchester United have looked at Jonathan Tah as well. Some people will look at that cynically and think, are they doing that because they want to bring the price down for Matthijs de Ligt? Whatever reasoning they have, they still feel de Ligt is an option, but not at the price that Bayern are really asking Manchester United to pay. Jarrod Brandtwaite, we've been talking about the entire window. It's a bit of a stalemate at the moment because United aren't willing to go higher than £70 million that Everton want. Their last bid was around £50 million all in. If Everton are to reduce their asking price, then maybe United would go back to the table. But United are keeping an eye on his situation and Everton's situation as well before they decide whether they're going to pursue a deal for Brandtwaite. It sounds like there's lots going on. Where else should we be looking out for in regards to Manchester United? We know that United wanted a centre-back. They brought Lenny Yoro in, they wanted a forward, they brought in Joshua Zirkzee. We've talked about the midfield area. We've talked about a potential of another centre-back as well. Right-back is an interesting area too, because if Manchester United go into the market for a right-back, it's likely that Aaron Wan-Bissaka will be the key to whether they go back into the market for a right-back. Now we know West Ham are very interested, but we don't think that West Ham are interested in the pricing that Manchester United currently have. We think that United value Aaron Wan-Bissaka at £15 million plus. Interestingly, United are looking at a number of other right-backs, including the Bayern Munich right-back Emile Smith-Rowe. But like I said about the Jonathan Tah and the Matthijs de Ligt situation, West Ham United are also interested in Smith-Rowe. Cynically, you could ask the question, are they doing that because United are interested and maybe try to get the price down for Aaron Wan-Bissaka, or is there genuine interest in the Bayern Munich right-back? We understand that that is the case. Talks have been held between the two clubs. So again, definitely one to watch the right-back area. Jadon Sancho is another area to look at as well. We do know that he's been reintegrated into the squad at Manchester United. We do know that Erik ten Hag and Sancho have put all their issues behind them, drawn a line under it, and he's now training with the first team squad. However, that hasn't stopped interested parties in Jadon Sancho making their interest known. Paris Saint-Germain are the latest club to be interested in Jadon Sancho. While there hasn't been a formal approach to United, we understand via intermediaries they have explored the potential conditions of a deal. Now, if United get an offer from either them or Juventus or Borussia Dortmund who are interested as well, it's not to say that United would sell, but they would look at any suitable offers for any of their players really. You'd have to say that. So lots going on at Manchester United at the moment, incomings and outgoings as well. What about elsewhere then? Bring us up to speed on the future of Emile Smith-Rowe. Yeah, look, we know that Fulham have lost Paulina to Bayern Munich. They have been in the market to bring in midfielders. We mentioned Scott McTominay already. They had a bid of £17 million rejected. They're likely to go back in. And Emile Smith-Rowe, they've had a bid rejected from Arsenal, as have Crystal Palace. There is an expectation that Fulham will go back in with an improved offer. We know that Emile Smith-Rowe is currently with the Arsenal squad. He's flown out to the United States for their pre-season tour. So at the moment, he's part of the plans until Fulham increase their offer, and whether Arsenal will accept that offer. They don't want him to go. They're not actively looking to sell, but they are sympathetic to his situation. They know that he wants regular first-team football. Is he going to get that at Arsenal? It's questionable. The player that's in front of him is the captain and one of their best players in Martin Odegaard. So his pathway really is a little bit blocked as far as Smith-Rowe is concerned. Fulham also looking at Andre from Fluminense. They've had initial discussions with the Brazilian club. At the moment, there's a gap in valuation. Interest remains. They haven't gone back in yet though. Okay, Nolan, for now, thank you very much. But we will start with the breaking transfer news overnight, and Pep Guardiola has announced that Kevin De Bruyne will not be moving to Saudi Arabia this summer. There have been growing speculation linking both De Bruyne and Ederson with the move out of Manchester City, but as far as Guardiola is concerned, De Bruyne at least isn't going. City are in the USA on a pre-season tour and Guardiola faced the media. That part was in the Spanish section of Guardiola's news conference. We'll bring you that shortly. The Man City manager had previously said that he wasn't sure if there would be any departures from the club this summer. I don't know what's going to happen in the market, but the squad is long enough. If someone leaves, we are going to talk about that. Of course, until the last day we have chances. I don't rule out the option to have any new players, but if anyone leaves, I think 90 to 95% will have the same squad. It seems like you're probably a little bit more relaxed than you were a few years ago, because when you were saying that you need to shake a move and they need to refresh and things like that, but it doesn't seem like that this time. I don't know when I said that. I refreshed my mind after 8 years together. I don't know when I said that. I think I was clear. I remember perfectly the first season. I think it was a really good season 8 years ago, but we are an old team and we have a new energy, and after we make an important impact in the market. Since then we make movements depending most of the time. Sometimes the players want to play more, or sometimes players want to give another experience. In that term, every situation is different, and I feel comfortable because the quality of the human beings that we have in the squad is difficult to be replaced and the quality is there. But we will see. I don't know in the last moment if someone came to some players and they leave. I'm going to decide. Well, no player has played more Premier League matches for Pep Guardiola than Ederson, while Kevin De Bruyne is Guardiola's third most used player since he took charge of the Etihad in the summer of 2016. So the future of Ederson remains uncertain. What about Guardiola himself? He only has one more year left on his current deal and has been linked with the England job, but he insists he's only focusing on City and the upcoming season. I'm really excited for this season that's coming, so I'm really happy here. Like every season I need a break, I need it definitely, but after that I charge my batteries and I have the same energy like usual and I know the competition is coming. I will be who we are, who I am, and I'm completely focused on that for respect for the Federation, the English Federation, especially for my club. Jack Grealish was a surprise omission from Gareth Southgate's England squad at the Euros this summer, and he's part of this Manchester City touring party in the United States. Guardiola has been impressed with what he's seen so far. It's really good. I think I've come back perfect and with the same happiness and the same unbelievable attitude with the group. Hopefully he can do a good season to push his mates, to deserve a place in the team, to want to play as much regularly as he happens to go in the last season. It absolutely depends on him. All the players depend on him, not on my decisions. And of course, we're keeping you up to date with all that's happening in the world of football, building up to the new season and the transfer news as well. Nolan Baker is with us. I'm going to start with some news from Arsenal. How close is a deal for Ricardo Calafiori? Good pronunciation that, Haley. Look at this, 35 days to go. 5 weeks today is deadline day. So clubs got to start getting a move on to get their deals done, I think. But Arsenal are making moves. We do know that Ricardo Calafiori, that deal between Arsenal and Bologna has been agreed, 50 million euros all in. But it is developing today because we're expecting Calafiori in London at some point today for his Arsenal medical, all being well. And once he's completed that medical, it's expected that he will then fly to the United States of America to join the rest of the Arsenal squad because they're out there for their pre-season tour of the state. So it's getting very close now. This one, everything is done club to club. Everything seems to have been done. Agreed in principle, club to player is now just the formalities of the medical signing off on those personal terms. And then Calafiori will be an Arsenal player. Okay, what about outgoings from Arsenal then? A fair few homegrown talents have been linked with moves away from the club, haven't they? Yeah, so we're talking about Calafiori potentially going to the United States. A player who's still there with the Arsenal squad is Emile Smith-Rowe. He is still waiting for that full agreement between Arsenal and Fulham over a deal that's worth around £35 million. We think it's an initial £27 million that Fulham will pay, plus £8 million in performance-related add-ons. But he's just waiting for that final agreement between the two clubs because all sorts of talks have to take place with a big deal like that. It's a Fulham club transfer record. It would be a record sale, equaling record sale for Arsenal. So he's just sitting tight at the moment. He was kept out of any action for their first pre-season game against Bournemouth the other night because Mikel Arteta said, look, there is stuff going on in the background, which we do know is this deal with Fulham. But once he gets that permission, once that full agreement is made, it's expected he'll fly from the US back to London for a medical with Fulham. They actually fly out next week for a pre-season training camp in Portugal, and it hasn't been ruled out that Emile Smith-Rowe may still play a part in that pre-season training camp. As far as a couple of other players are concerned at Arsenal, Reiss Nelson and Eddie Nketiah. But let's start with Eddie Nketiah. He's been linked with a move to Marseille. However, there is a big gap in valuation between what Arsenal want for Eddie Nketiah and what Marseille are prepared to pay. Remember, Marseille managed now by Roberto De Zerbi. They've already made a couple of signings from the Premier League in this transfer window. Now we're just waiting to see if Marseille are going to focus on other targets or if indeed they're going to go back to Arsenal with an improved offer that may make Arsenal turn their head with regard to Nketiah. He played in their first pre-season game against Bournemouth. So as far as Arsenal are concerned, he remains an Arsenal player until they get a deal that is suitable for the player. But more importantly, the club as well. Reiss Nelson is another player who did feature in that game against Bournemouth, we're told, and we've been saying throughout the window, that he wants to assess all of his options because the primary motivation for Reiss Nelson, for Nketiah, for Emile Smith-Rowe is regular first-team football, which they're not seemingly going to get at Arsenal. Even though Mikel Arteta did praise the attitude of Reiss Nelson and Nketiah during that game against Bournemouth, we know that Leicester City have been in talks with Arsenal over a potential deal. West Ham United have shown interest during this transfer window as well. As yet, no formal offer. But we expect that one to maybe accelerate a little bit more once the US tour with Arsenal is over in a week or so. Okay, let's talk West Ham. They're also hoping to add a player to their squad, a big player. What can you tell us about John Duran? Yeah, this is their primary target now, as far as a forward player is concerned for West Ham United. And the proposal that we heard about earlier on this week that they'd made to Aston Villa was cash plus their 18-year-old academy player, highly rated academy player, Lewis Orford. Now, that was met by quite a bit of pushback on social media by West Ham fans, a section of West Ham fans who, as much excitement as there is regarding a potential arrival of John Duran, they don't want to see one of their own, if you like, who's been at the club since 5 years old, leave the club. Now, I've also been told now that while West Ham, that's the proposal that West Ham have put to Aston Villa, it hasn't been agreed and it hasn't been ruled out that West Ham will now go in with a cash offer only for John Duran, which they have been trying to do earlier on in this transfer window, but haven't been able to find an agreement because there has been that gap in valuation while keeping Lewis Orford at West Ham United. So that option, I'm told, has not been ruled out at this stage, even though the initial proposal that we've got has been cash plus player. It could turn into just a straight cash deal with West Ham United, maybe keeping Lewis Orford at the club. Okay, anything else? Any other incomings for West Ham? Yeah, so we know that the Bayern Munich right-back Nasser Masraoui, there's been a deal that's agreed in principle between West Ham United and Bayern Munich. It's worth 19.5 million euros. It's an initial 16 million euros plus 3.5 million euros in performance-related add-ons. That man there, Masraoui, is just waiting now for the green light to travel to London to take that medical. But while there's still details of that deal between the two clubs to sort, he still cannot officially do that medical and finalize those personal terms. But once he gets the green light, he will do that medical, and West Ham United are currently out in the United States of America just now. And it hasn't been ruled out that Masraoui can still yet play a part for West Ham United in that tour, provided in the next 2 or 3 days this deal can be finalized. Right, let's get to the transfers then. Arsenal's main target for this window, Ricardo Calafiori, is on his way to London as his move edges closer, as you can see. How long do Arsenal fans have to wait before this all gets confirmed? We're getting closer and closer now. Ricardo Calafiori is having a medical in London today. We brought you the pictures earlier on this morning of him arriving at the airport in Rome ahead of his departure for London for that medical, and all being well, he'll then fly out to join his new teammates in the USA currently on their pre-season tour there at the moment. And a reminder about the deal, it's a significant deal this for Arsenal, worth up to 50 million euros, and this was agreed with Bologna earlier this week, and this is a really significant fee. But the reason why it is so sizable is because Bologna only signed Calafiori from Basel last summer for around 4 million euros, but they inserted a clause in that contract whereby they stand to make 50% of what Bologna make in terms of profit on this deal. So that's why Bologna pushed for as high a fee as possible. They feel like they've got a decent deal in the end. Yes, Arsenal paying a huge amount for a player who was only bought for around 4 million euros last summer, but they feel like he's the right man to help strengthen what is already a formidable defense. Yeah, okay, let's talk about that defense then, because just wondering where he'll fit into it. He's obviously very adaptable, but someone will have to be dropped to include him, or does he just become part of a very decent defensive unit and squad? Well, his career journey is really interesting. He started his career as a left-back, but excelled last season as a central defender. Just 1 season in Serie A with Bologna, but playing in central defense there for them, they achieved Champions League qualification for the first time in their history. So we can see their 29 starts at centre-back, 6 at left-back. So they tried to use him more centrally. Also a starter for Italy during the Euro 2024 campaign. Really excelled there, played in a back 3, picked up 2 bookings, so was suspended for their last 16 tie against Switzerland where they went out. So we know he's left-sided, can play at centre-back in a back 3 or a back 4 or left-back. Now, Arsenal tend to play exclusively with a back 4 under Mikel Arteta, so it seems you'd think left-back would be the area if he's looking to get into this Arsenal first team immediately. That's where he could potentially rival the likes of Jakub Kiwior, Alexander Zinchenko, Takeru Tomiyasu as well. That was the one area last season of changing that back 4. Ben White very settled now as the right back, the central pairing. He's tough to get into there and break through that. But you think Kiwior strong defensively, more of a centre-back, quite limited on the ball. Zinchenko has been used as more of an inverted full-back. There's still some questions about him defensively, so that I think would seem more likely. Alternatively, it's whether or not Mikel Arteta wants to disrupt that centre-back pairing of William Saliba and Gabriel. That would seem a stretch because let's bear in mind Arsenal had the best defence in the Premier League last season by some distance, more clean sheets than anybody else, less goals conceded than anybody else. And so that is why some people may question Arsenal buying a central defender who can play left-back in this window because they maybe think other areas in the pitch. Maybe striker is what fans want more than anything. But Arsenal don't want to stand still. They want to strengthen whilst they're strong, and this is a sign of them trying to really increase competition for places. But you do worry about the future if you're Jakub Kiwior or Alexander Zinchenko, because I think this guy's going to come in. I think he's going to make a real impact based on what we've seen from him in the last 12 months. Yeah, and I guess this is the nature. If you want to win the Premier League and take on the likes of Manchester City, then you're going to have a strong squad. There's no guarantee that these players are going to stay fit. Those centre-back pairing that you mentioned were kind of ever-present, weren't they? They get injured and you've got someone that can come in and do that job. So it's a sign of intent from Arsenal. Absolutely. And last summer there were the same question marks when Arsenal looked to replace Aaron Ramsdale and increase the competition for places, which many felt they didn't require. You don't want to have two number ones fighting the same jersey, but improving the squad, making the squad strong whilst they're strong is what Edu and Mike Arteta wanted to do with this Arsenal squad. They want to make sure that nobody's standing still and the competition for places is there. So Arsenal really do feel like they've got a formidable defense. They want to make that even better. So it's interesting to see where he fits in. I think when you think about what he's been able to do in terms of his ability on the ball as well, I think he will offer something in that left-back area as well as being defensively sound. And of course, Arsenal in the Champions League, maybe this will be a season where Mike Arteta looks to rotate a little bit more with his defensive lineup, but you argue they've got the best defense in the Premier League, and it's only going to get better now. Yeah, good point about the Champions League as well. Thank you, James.